In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." You are the God of this story. You are the one who's created the people that inhabit it, and you are going to create the world in which they are going to live. Now, the principles of good storytelling actually come from creation, because you know that God had us in mind before he created where we were going to live. So he thought of us and our souls and all that intricate stuff before he thought of the earth. The earth did not come before us in his mind. Instead, the earth was suited to us. So you must suit your world to your characters, which means they actually have to be able to live in this place. It cannot be shallow, it cannot be sketchy. It has to be as real as they are. This means that you're going to have to spend a great deal of time building your world and your concept. Lots of time, even more than you're on your characters, actually. Because if you look at Genesis, God spent more days making the world that the people were going to live in than he did making the people. So if you think you know more than God about creating things, well, go ahead and do whatever you want. It won't work though, because you will plant your living people down into paper world, and they will walk off the edge into Davy Jones' locker. Either that, or you're going to be making up a bunch of stuff all the time, and you're going to create all these plot holes and loose ends that totally don't need to be there. It would be like going on a trip, like we talked about at the beginning, going on a trip without a map and without any idea where you're going. You don't want to do that. So you have got to build this world, and it's fun. So you have got to make rules for your place. If this is not a real world place, if it's science fiction or fantasy, there need to be rules. Like, so if it's science fiction, can these people travel faster than light yet? What's their technology level? What can they do? Like in Star Trek, can they beam from place to place? Or do they still have to use shuttles? Or do they have to cryo freeze you in order for you to get from here to the edge of the solar system? Or are they way beyond that? Are there aliens? What are they like? That's a lot of work. If you're gonna have to do aliens, then that's twice as much work. If it's fantasy, you need to make your magic have rules, because your readers will be surprised and confused if you seem to have set up a certain way things are, and then you throw something new at them that you just made up, and they're like, "What? I didn't think that could happen, because you said that stuff can happen back there, and now you did it." And you will need to create a government. If this is a non-real place, you're gonna have to decide, is this, like a representative republic like we've got? Is it a total democracy? Is it communism? Is it a dictatorship? Is it a small patriarchal tribe? Anything like that. Or every man for himself, kind of like out in the Wild West. What is it? But you need to write down what that is. and how it works and how it relates to your character, how they operate in that system. You need to know the landscape, you need to know the climate, and because of those things, you need to know what they're wearing, okay? So if they are in a cold climate, they're not wearing shorts. I mean, just basic stuff like that, but you have to think about it. If they're in someplace very wet, then they're going to need to know how to waterproof their shoes and wear wool and yeah, stuff like that. Everything that people wear relates to their climate, where they're living and what they have to do, okay? And this is especially important, and it's a pet peeve of mine as far as like armor goes, especially for women. Please make it functional, okay? Don't make it like just to look good. It has to work, because if it's gonna flip off, fall off, slide off during battle, I don't care how good she looks while she's walking down, she's gonna get killed or hurt, and what's the point of your stupid armor? So make it functional. You can make it functional and beautiful, but make sure it works. Make sure that everything they do has a purpose, and that it works. Research. Okay, so even if you're writing a science fiction, okay, there are sci-fi techie people who will eat you if you don't get things right. So if you have a question about something like the surface of Mars, look it up. It's on the internet. Just look it up. Research Mars. If you're writing a fantasy but you're using some real plants and you have some people eat it or drink it or make tea out of it or whatever, make sure you know what it does. Make sure you can eat that. Because there are people who will know, well, you just poisoned your main character, and since they didn't drop dead, I'm assuming you don't know what you're talking about. And people get really irritated at this stuff. So if you are wondering about anything, do your research. And I don't think I have to say this, but I think I will anyway. If your story takes place in a real place, and I don't care if it's 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if it's real, you need to do all the research you possibly can. I can't emphasize that enough. My brother once read a book, I can't remember what it's called, but it had a part where a kid went skateboarding in St. Mark's Square in Venice. There's a couple problems with that. Firstly, it's all cobblestone, and it would be heck to try to skateboard on that. You can't. You'd fall on your face. Secondly, nothing with wheels is allowed in Venice, in the whole city. No roller skates, no skateboards, no bicycles, nothing. So this person, this writer, showed her hand and proved that she'd never been there because she made a stupid mistake. And so now with things like Google Earth, you can almost literally plant yourself right in St. Mark's Square and look around. Have you ever done that? Do that. Use Google Earth, and you can grab the little man down in the corner, pick him up and put him on the map and let go, and then you can panoramically look around at all these places all over the world. So there's no excuse anymore. Just because you can't pay for it doesn't mean you can't go. And like I said, even if it was 100, 200 years ago, it doesn't matter, because a lot of these places, people know their history. They live there, and they know their history about the place that they live. And they definitely know what the weather's like. They definitely know what they put on a October morning. They will be irritated at you if you don't also know, and if your characters don't seem to know, and the climate in your place doesn't seem to know, and it stops acting like itself because you don't know. And that's embarrassing. And it doesn't need to happen, because you can find all this stuff out. The internet is wonderful. I can't overemphasize the importance of maps. Maps are great. If you are making up a place, then draw one. Tolkien did this. He drew it all out, and I'm sure he had it on his wall so that he could put pins in it and be like, okay, Frodo is here, and Aragorn is here, and Boromir is down here. Otherwise, you lose track of stuff. And you think, oh yeah, they can walk there in a day. No, they can't. No, they can't. Oh my gosh, look how far that is. Right now, I have a Victorian map. I think it's from 1890. Hanging on my wall, right up here, of London. Because I'm writing the Mute of Pendywick Place. And I have to know, well, I mean, Pendywick Place is a little bit south of Hyde Park. And then right down the way is Westminster. So they can walk to Westminster, you know, of an afternoon and get some exercise. Baker Street is kind of a hike. So when they go there, yeah, it'd be nice to get a cab. They have walked it, but it takes a long time. Walking all the way down to Scrooge and Marley's, it's probably a all afternoon sort of excursion. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done my research and had my pins in my map. That's so important. Do it. And it's really kind of cool because then you get to know like a city that essentially no longer exists. Because London got bombed out in World War II. And I'm sure they rearranged things. So it's like time travel, guys. It's so cool. Take advantage. Do it. This is probably one of my favorite aspects of being a writer because I know that as long as I'm a writer, I will always learn things. I will be learning until I am dead because I will make myself do the research that I need to make my settings real, and I'll learn all kinds of stuff about history and customs and clothing and governments and rulers and ticky-tacky things like how did people heat up their bathtubs in Victorian Yorkshire. And oftentimes the things that are really important in a story are not the things that are in history books. They are little intimate details of people's everyday lives, what their undergarments look like and how they shaved and how they cleaned their teeth and what they had for breakfast, and that's what actually makes a setting come to life. And my favoriteest person for this is a historian named Ruth Goodman. So your homework for this next time is to watch one of the series that she's got it on YouTube, or read her book. The one that I'm reading is called How to Be a Victorian, a Dawn to Dusk Guide to Living Victorian Life. And on YouTube, she's done several series. One is called Victorian Farm. Another one is called Victorian Farm Christmas. There's Edwardian Farm. There is Wartime Farm. There's Secrets of the Castle, which is really cool because that takes place in Tudor times. So if you're wanting like medieval Renaissance sort of stuff, and she is just great at giving you those little day-to-day details. So, and making it really fun. I love her. She's so much fun. She's so enthusiastic about doing all of this. You can tell she loves it, and it's contagious. So she's really fun to watch. So remember, you had all of those character interviews. You have to do something like that for your setting and just flesh it out. And even if these details don't show up in your story, you will know them, and they will provide a foundation for everything and how everything works and operates and turns in your story. Just like you wouldn't set someone down in the middle of a blank box and expect them to live and thrive. You can't do that to your characters. Your setting, just like Hogwarts or Pendywick Place, has to almost be a person so that your people, your readers, will want to live there. They want to go, they want to visit, they want to walk around, and you are their passport. So have fun creating.